A new beginning, a strange note. The apartment was perfect, spacious, sun-drenched, and in a charming, quiet neighborhood. It felt like a dream come true, the perfect place to start my new life. Little did I know, a nightmare awaited me. It began subtly, a crumpled note tucked away in a drawer. "They're watching you." I dismissed it as a prank, a relic from the previous tenant. I should have paid attention. As the sun set, casting long, eerie shadows, a chill settled over me. It was a creeping sense of unease, a feeling of being watched. I shook it off, attributing it to the stress of the move. I was alone, yes, but safe, or so I thought. Every creak and groan sounded like footsteps. My imagination ran wild, fueled by the isolation and the note. Sleep was plagued by unsettling dreams filled with shadowy figures. I woke up more exhausted, the feeling of dread clinging to me. The temperature shifts. Days turned into weeks, and the strange occurrences began to escalate. The temperature would fluctuate dramatically, from warm to icy cold in an instant. Objects would move slightly. A book left on the coffee table found slightly ajar. A glass shifted a few inches from its original position. It was as if an unseen hand was toying with me. Fear turned to paranoia. I started questioning everything, every sound, every shadow. Was it just my imagination? Or did the painting on the wall tilt slightly? Was that the wind rattling the windows, or something trying to get in? I found myself constantly looking over my shoulder, scanning the shadows for any sign of movement. Sleep became a distant memory. I lay awake at night, heart pounding in my chest, every sense on high alert. I told myself it was all in my head, that I was just letting my imagination run wild. But deep down, a primal fear gnawed at me, whispering that something was terribly wrong. Whispers in the walls. One evening, as I sat alone in the living room, trying to distract myself with a book, I heard it, a faint whisper, barely audible above the hum of the refrigerator. It seemed to come from the walls, a low, guttural sound that sent shivers down my spine. I froze, holding my breath, straining to hear it again. Silence. Minutes stretched into an eternity as I sat there, paralyzed with fear. Had I really heard something, or was it just my imagination playing tricks on me? I tried to convince myself it was nothing, but the doubt lingered, twisting in my gut like a living thing. That night, the whispers returned, more insistent this time. They seemed to be everywhere, surrounding me, taunting me. I couldn't escape them. They slithered under the door, seeped through the cracks in the walls, invaded my very thoughts. I felt a cold dread creep up my spine, wrapping around me like icy fingers. Paranoia takes root. Days turned into a blur of fear and suspicion. My once beloved apartment became a prison, every corner holding the potential for terror. I stopped inviting friends over, ashamed of my growing paranoia. I barely left my apartment, ordering takeout and groceries online, avoiding any human contact. The outside world felt safer, but the truth was, I was trapped, both physically and mentally. Every creak of the floorboard, every rustle of curtains, sent my heart racing. I saw shadows lurking in the corners of my vision, felt a cold breath on the back of my neck. The line between reality and delusion blurred. Was I going insane? Or was something truly sinister at play? The note, once dismissed as a prank, now haunted my every waking moment. "They're watching you," it had warned. And now I believed it. With every fiber of my being, I believed it. One night, as I lay in bed, trying to will myself to sleep, I felt it, a presence in the room. It wasn't a sound or a smell, but a feeling, heavy and oppressive. like being suffocated by a thick, invisible blanket. My eyes flew open, my heart pounding in my chest. The room was dark, but I could sense it there, lurking in the shadows, watching me. And then I saw it. A shimmer in the air, a distortion of light, like heat rising from asphalt. It moved slowly, deliberately circling my bed. Terror, pure and primal, flooded through me. I couldn't breathe, couldn't scream. I was paralyzed, trapped in my own personal nightmare. The shimmer stopped at the foot of my bed, and for the first time I felt it, a gaze cold and calculating, boring into me. The entity, for lack of a better word, never spoke, never made a sound, but its presence was unmistakable, a constant weight on my chest, a suffocating feeling that followed me everywhere I went. I was trapped in a waking nightmare, sharing my home with something I couldn't see, couldn't understand, and couldn't escape. I tried everything to rid myself of it. I cleansed the apartment with sage, hung garlic and rosemary over every doorway, even consulted a priest, desperate for any kind of relief. But nothing worked. The entity remained, an unseen spectre haunting my every move. The fear became a constant companion, a gnawing anxiety that eroded my sanity. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't think straight. My once vibrant life had shrunk to the confines of my apartment, my world reduced to a constant state of terror. Seeking answers, finding madness. Desperate for answers, I scoured the internet, devoured books on the paranormal, consulted psychics and mediums. Some dismissed my story as delusion, others offered well-meaning but ultimately useless advice. I was lost in a labyrinth of fear, each turn leading me further down the rabbit hole of madness. I learned about the history of my building, about a string of unexplained deaths, about whispers of a malevolent entity that haunted its halls. It seemed I was not the first to be tormented by this unseen force. But what was it? And why me? The more I learned, the more terrified I became. The entity was real, and it was toying with me, feeding off my fear, growing stronger with every passing day. I was trapped, not just in my apartment, but in a nightmare of my own making. The Watcher's Game. As the days turned into weeks, I began to notice a pattern to the entity's behavior. It seemed to revel in my fear, appearing more frequently when I was alone, when I was vulnerable. It was as if it was playing a game with me, testing my limits, pushing me closer and closer to the edge. There were times when I felt an overwhelming urge to confront the entity, to demand answers. But fear always held me back, whispering that some things are best left unknown. I was caught in a vicious cycle, paralyzed by fear, yet inexplicably drawn to the very thing that terrified me. I knew I couldn't go on like this. I had to find a way to break free, to reclaim my life from the clutches of this unseen terror. But how? How do you fight something you can't see, something that exists outside the realm of human understanding? No escape. I tried to move, of course, but every time I packed my bags, the entity would make its presence known, a chilling reminder that I was not in control. The fear was debilitating, paralyzing me, keeping me tethered to this place of torment. The apartment, once my sanctuary, had become my prison. The walls seemed to close in on me, the air thick with an unseen menace. I was a prisoner in my own home, haunted by an entity I couldn't escape. The knowledge that I was not alone, that something unseen was watching my every move, poisoned every aspect of my life. I was a shadow of my former self, broken, defeated, living in a perpetual state of terror. Living with the unseen. I exist now in a perpetual state of unease. The fear never truly leaves. It lingers like a bitter aftertaste, a constant reminder of the unseen world that exists just beyond our perception. I have resigned myself to my fate, to a life lived in the shadows, forever haunted by the unseen watcher. Sleep is a luxury I can no longer afford. Every creak of the floorboard, every whisper of the wind, sends a jolt of fear through me. I am a prisoner in my own mind, haunted by the knowledge that I am constantly being watched. This is my life now, a terrifying tale whispered in the dead of night, a chilling reminder that sometimes the most terrifying monsters are the ones we can't see, and there is no escape from the unseen watcher.